I'm sorry, but I don't want to be an emperor. That's not my business. In this world, there's room for everyone, and the good earth is rich and can provide for everyone. The way of life can be free and beautiful, but we have lost the way. Greed has poisoned men's souls, has barricaded the world with hate. We think too much and feel too little. We think too much and feel too little. More than machinery, we need humanity. More than cleverness, we need kindness. Without these qualities, life will be violent. No will be lost. Do not despair. The hate of men will pass, and dictators die. Dictators die. And the power they took from the people will return to the people. Will return to the people. Let us all unite. Let us fight for a new world to do away with greed. Now let us fight to free the world, to fulfill that promise. Let us all unite.
Welcome, folks, to the Corporation Nation radio program. I'm Clint Richardson, your host. It's the 24th, a Monday, March 24th. I'd like to welcome my special guest today, Patrick Jordan. I think this will be Patrick's third or fourth time on the show with me now because, gosh, to be honest, it's the guy gets it. I've been so concerned about these prions and all these other things that they're doing to us in our food, or what Patrick calls doof. It's been a pleasure to finally meet someone that actually can talk about it and heck, teach me along the way. So welcome to the show, Patrick.
Hi, Clint. Hi, everybody. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate this.
Sure thing. Vaccinefraud.com is the website for Patrick. He's got several books and things up there. I have to apologize. I had a really bad experience last week. On Saturday, I had to go to the hospital, and I have some kind of, whether it's a bug bite or just some other kind of infection, I don't know, but my whole back swelled up like a softball, and I'm not sure what's going on. And I'll tell you, I went to the emergency room, went to a nonprofit hospital, thinking that I could talk my way into the nonprofit aspect of the hospital. But boy, they run a tight machine, I'll tell you. When I got there, they basically showed me a computer screen and said, "Here, sign here for consent." And I'm like, huh? Is there a contract that comes with this? I mean, you want me to sign my consent to what? And so they pulled out a 2-page contract, and I looked at it, and I said, "Hey, this is not nonprofit. This is telling you, this is a way of letting you come after me. Why would I want to sign this? I'm here for your nonprofit services. I'm unemployed. I have no income." And they basically proceeded to tell me that I couldn't be treated, that I'd have to leave, even though I was in severe pain. In fact, I've never been in such pain in my life. I can't sleep. I can't lay down because the thing's right on my back. So I finally, let's just say that I got to get a firsthand experience of what it's like to try to operate without a number and try to operate without basically giving my my surname and everything else. And eventually I just had to do it because otherwise they were not going to treat me, which, as far as I understand, is actually quite illegal. So I think that I will probably make a very big deal out of this, because I could not believe that, they wouldn't take my signed contract. Well, I had them print out the contract so I could sign it, and of course I said under duress and I'm under command and I have to sign this to get treated, and they wouldn't take that. So it was just a mess. So I finally got in, and gosh, I'm on 2 sets of antibiotics for this horrible thing going. I don't know what it is, but seems to be going down a little. But Patrick, I apologize if I'm not my usual chipper self, because these drugs are horrible.
Well, I fully understand, and you've got all of my, if I can use the word, sympathy for everything that you're going through.
Yeah, well, so, gosh, what's going on in the world of the zombies?
Well, I appreciate the fact that you and I had done a wink and nod for me to come on this Monday without alerting the AI that it might happen. And I put out an email to my list members to let them know that I might be here in a coded kind of way, because I've been having phone trouble still since we did our last show. And I didn't want to be knocked off because you, my dear friend, have come out with some amazing data that I think puts the entire conspiracy together. And if you want to start out, I can fill in the blanks and take us all the way back to 1790 AD. And I'm not stuttering. I said that right. 1790, when Jenner actually started the entire process of the Prion Holocaust.
Well, I assume you're talking about I kind of explained this a little bit because I had to fill in some time the other day about prions, and the fact that there's all these patents that I've found and information that basically the interferons are what are being affected. And of course, interferons are natural killer cells, B cells, and T cells. So think AIDS, all these things. So what they found is that there was this nasty little thing back in the 1950s, actually, in Tokyo and in London, that was interfering with the response that they were having in trying to actually infect things with disease. So either a live animal or a chicken embryo to grow the cell substrates for the vaccines. And eventually they called it viral inhibitory factor, or VIF, and then eventually they agreed to call it interferon because it literally interferes with the process of a pathogen, viruses, bacteria, parasites, or tumor cells, most importantly tumor cells, I think, from actually getting a hold and becoming a parasite within the host cells, which are the normal cells. And so the way I compared it to make it easy for people to understand is that when your cells, if you have an infection, kind of like I have now, your cells put out sort of a chemical phone call, if you will, like a cell phone. And those chemicals, those amino acids are proteins. That's what these interferons are. They're actually glycoproteins, cytokines. And basically they go and they communicate with the spinal system, which is where your bone marrow is really where your immune system really functions. And so the cell phone call basically creates these cells, T cells, B cells, and then K cells. And what they've found is that the prions are interfering with the interferons. So the phone call can never be made. So if you're suffering from AIDS, the symptoms of autoimmune deficiency syndrome or anything like it, because we're also talking about, your Gulf War syndromes and similar things, then the phone call can't be made. The T cells can't be reproduced because the body is not getting the signal, the cell phone signal from your cells that they're under attack. So literally, your body doesn't know it has an infection, and that's what I've seen. They've also been they're showing also these patents that show that the influenza virus also has a really, really powerful effect upon these interferons, and of course are creating new patents and new deadlier forms of influenza. Of course, because you need to improve or modify to make a unique strain, and they're really interested in blocking the body's response to disease. So when we get back, we'll talk more about that. Stay tuned.
First of all, let me take just a moment to thank you for allowing me back into your homes. If this is your first time with us, let me extend a personal invitation. Let's build a happy little cloud. Let's build some happy little trees. There are no limits here. You start out by believing here is in your world. You're the creator. Find freedom on this canvas. Believe that you can do it. Because you can do it. Relax, let it flow. Think like water. Relax, let it flow. You can go on and on and on. We don't make mistakes. We just have happy
folks, welcome back. So, and so we've got this interferon thing going on. So basically the prions that we've been discussing in the last few shows are basically attacking the proteins that are called interferons, which are the proteins or amino acids that go and basically connect with the immune system. So they're never getting there. Their cell phone call is interrupted by the prions. That's basically what these things are saying. Now, we got to remember that when you're reading this from a patent or you're reading it from an old study, then you're reading it because they're not happy about that. They want, they want to cause disease. They want to infect things. So when they write these things, they're writing it in the sense that, hey, this is a good thing. We can actually infect people in a better, more reasonable way by inhibiting these things that interfere with infection. Now, the other thing, Patrick, that I thought you might have some notes on, I don't know, I haven't looked into it too much, is they came out with we know that LDL, the cholesterol, has been called bad cholesterol. And from what I understand, there was just a study that came out and said that's all crap. There is no such thing as bad cholesterol, and that LDL doesn't cause the troubles that go along with that. But here's the kicker. Lack of LDL receptor enhances amyloid deposition and decreases glial response in an Alzheimer's disease mouse model. So in other words, the LDL, when you're lacking in LDL, this is why they've gotten it out of our diets, I assume, and demonized it so much, because it interferes with the processes of the prion. In other words, it protects against the cells. And so this is crazy, man. What's the history with these interferons that you have?
So, well, let me back you up just a bit, Clint, because you made a funny digital noise when you're talking about the LDL. Can you just repeat that again? Because I want the listeners to know. I take notes. What Clint is saying is so important, and for a guy that's in pain, his focus and coherency is to the level that the entire planet needs to be at. Every word that he said was important. So if you could, just give me that statement again about the LDL. And the lack of the receptor.
Lack of LDL receptor. This is the name of a patent, actually. A study. Lack of LDL receptor enhances the amyloid deposition, like the deposits, basically, depositions, and decreases glial response in an Alzheimer's disease. So LDL would actually help with the Alzheimer's condition, which, as we know, is, well, you'd have to do an autopsy to actually understand and know it, but, and most people don't. But Alzheimer's is listed as one of those prion diseases. So it turns out that LDL is a major factor in protecting the body against what we call amyloid deposits, which are what the prions actually leave behind in their path of destruction.
Okay, so here we go. And I'm just going to give the scoop now. I'm done with my third book on food. and number 4 is in the works. So this is going to be presented to the public. So I feel a little bit like I should have a cliffhanger and like buy my book, but I don't know if we're going to be cut off the phone line, by the next show. So here's the deal. In 1790, Jenner started his pollution of the human genome. And what he used was so many different things that even Stanford, when they did the gene sequencing on what is called vaccinia, that's supposedly the virus that he used, they could not make any link between vaccinia and smallpox or vaccinia and cowpox. It was a hybrid thing. So this hybrid pollution to the human genome, what it does is it shuts down serine protease in the body. And folks, if you listen to all of Clint's previous shows that he did with me, what we found on shows with Roxy Lopez was that of all things, the U.S. Geological Survey was looking into lichens because a particular lichen that is high in serine protease was necessary for wild animals to prevent chronic wasting disease. So we have all the way back to 1790, where I firmly hold to this position that they were, even though they weren't working in computerized laboratories wearing white coats and doing things in test tubes, they were working within the human bodies to create the very thing that we're seeing now. It's what I call the long game. So even though you don't think they were technologically advanced, they had the game plan, they had the goal, they had the direction, and they had the means to pull it off. It started with Jenner in 1790. If we then jump to 1956, and that's the date that I have that they fell across interferon, which means it interfered with them trying to do what? You're going to love this. Make vaccines in hen's eggs. It was messing with them. They couldn't do it. Interferon got in the way of continuing Jenner's pollution. So we've got this golden thread. My whole thing is vaccinefraud.com, and I don't like to be like locked in, stereotyped and topical, because the kind of things that we're talking about, Clint, this is nearly science fiction when you get into the world of prions, because they actually use amyloids. They make them in the laboratory as part of materials science.
Yeah.
So we're not just talking biology here. We're talking they're using them in an industrial manner. Bioengineering for, can I say it without, taking us into the weird world? Body armor and spaceship hulls, that kind of thing. This has been a long game coming, and in 1956, they fell across the interferon, which was messing up their day, by the 1960s. And this is why I do timelines, because you can't mistake the pattern. By the 1960s, they had already labeled chronic wasting disease. So they knew what they were doing. Because the interferon, and what you were saying, Clint, is what they were doing is interfering with the interferon to allow the prion to do its job. Yeah,
and that doesn't necessarily mean they exactly knew what the prion was at the time. Like you said, it was they didn't have the computer science that they do now. But my God, now I'm seeing. Well, when we get back, we'll tell you about what they're doing with computers and how they're using that to design what they call synthetic living systems. This isn't so crazy when you think transhumanism and other crazy things that are happening. We'll be back.
He's a rebel and a runner. He's a signal turning breed. He's a restless young romantic, wants to run a big machine. He's got a problem with his poisons.
Here in the Corporation Nation. You know, Patrick Jordan's my guest today, vaccinefraud.com. You know, I'm starting to realize, Patrick, that we are talking about transhumanism. We are talking about, you know, people think this sounds nuts until you just simply think, hey, they're growing live cells on computer chips now. You can find the videos out there. I mean, you can actively program brain cells on computer. They're doing all of these things. So here's one of the things that's sort of a frightening concept. This is back in 2011. It says computer-assisted design, or CAD. For God's sake, that's what we used to use in drafting for RNA. Researchers developed CAD-type tools for engineering RNA control systems. My God. It says researchers have developed computer-assisted design-type tools for engineering RNA components to control genetic expression in microbes. This holds enormous potential for microbial-based production of advanced biofuels, biodegradable plastics, therapeutic drugs, and a host of other goods now derived from petrochemicals. The computer-assisted design tools that made it possible to fabricate integrated circuits with millions of transistors may soon be coming to the biological sciences. Researchers at the U.S. Department of Energy, Joint Bioenergy Institute, have developed CAD-type models for simulations of RNA molecules that make it impossible to engineer biological components, or to engineer biological components or RNA devices for controlling genetic expression in microbes. So, here's another story that might really hit this a little more farther home, because what we're really talking about is turning on and off the switches of disease. It's kind of like a computer program, ones and zeros, if you will. They call them switches in the epigenome. It's one thing to map out the genes of a living organism. It's a whole other thing to realize that for every gene that there is, there's also the epigenome, which is the on and off switch. So if you have 1,000 genes and you have 1,000 on and off switches, you have literally millions of different possibilities on and off. So, artificial RNA switch developed to control cancer-fighting viruses. Now, let me read that to you again. Artificial RNA switch developed to control cancer-fighting viruses. Now, remember, this is not to help. This is not to put into your body to control cancer. This is because they want to control the RNA switch that will cause a cancer. Okay, an artificial RNA switch has been developed to control cancer-fighting viruses called oncolytic viruses. In other words, viruses that destroy cancer cells. So, I mean, folks, right now, I mean, are you going to have to pay? Are you going to have to pay to get your switches turned on and off? To not have that specific disease, a designer disease? What's going to happen? I mean, this is actually some of the most nutty stuff I've ever looked at. To consider that artificial switches are now being put into the body to control whether or not a cell or a cytokine does its job. This is nuts, Patrick.
It's like mafia coming to your business and asking for protection money, or they'll break your legs.
Yeah.
There's no other way to say it, Clint, and that's why I enjoy being on your show, because if you say it the way it is, then you can't sugarcoat it. You can't ignore it. I'm going to take your listeners to the publication called Nanoscale. It was published in 2009, and the title is Nanoscale OPTO electronic switches and logic devices. This was written by a team of scientists out of Poland, and what they did, it scared the bodily fluids out of me. They categorized biological molecules as being able to be seen as either a diode, a resistor, a capacitor, or a transistor. And I don't like to go into the world of science fiction. I don't like to go into the world of Hollywood. But there is no better analogy to the Matrix and seeing the human being as a manipulable, computer-driven program than to see things that I was only exposed to in college-level courses of this is a biomolecular molecule. But if you stop thinking about it in terms of anatomy and physiology, and you take it into the realm of electronics, then it becomes a circuit. If it is a circuit, how do you manipulate it? And they're talking about not what you were talking about, molecular switching, but light switching. And I'm going to tell you, Clint, and all your listeners, I'm having second thoughts about the red LED in the mouse that I use on my computer, because there's plenty of information out there that red and blue frequencies are used to switch genes on and off.
Lovely. Well, and then you've got this languages written to design synthetic living systems useful for new products and healthcare.
Products.
I mean, products and healthcare. Yes.
Product.
A computer-aided design tool has been developed to create genetic languages to guide and design the biological systems known as GenoCAD. The open-source software was developed by researchers to help synthetic biologists capture biological rules to engineer organisms that produce useful products or healthcare solutions from inexpensive, renewable resources. The other one here says light now shed on RNA on-off switches. Scientists from the Scripps Research Institute have shed new light on a molecular switch that turns genes on or off in response to a cell's energy needs. So the study shows recently discovered RNA, what they call ribose switches, are capable of more complex functions than originally thought. In addition, because they so far have been found primarily in bacteria, the study may have implications for designing new antibiotics against harmful bacteria. The study provides new insights into how a single RNA molecule can integrate both positive and negative signals from a cell. So it extends the known capabilities of ribose switches.
So when you signed your release in the ER, did you ask them for a ribose switch? You know, does this electronic signature come with the instant fix to what happened to you?
No, and it's funny because they asked me, so when was your last tetanus shot?
Oh, no, man.
And I said, I don't know, and Frank, I don't want one. Thank you very much.
Well, the thing to ask in that situation is, when is the last time you ever seen a case of tetanus in this hospital? Which, the answer, no doubt, I would put money on would be never.
Yeah.
So let me take you back to your previous most excellent outline of what was going on with interferon, because you were talking about that cell phone conversation being shut off. The body didn't know that it was sick. And I want to compare and contrast what you had just read. Can you give me a date on that last entry that you had harvested from the patent?
The one I just read?
Yeah, the ribose switch with the light.
February 14th, 2011.
2011. Okay, so this is like the BS commercial of Gardasil going, HPV or cancer. It's caused by a virus. Who knew?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, they knew in 1898. So right. It's a criminal. That's why I call it vaccine fraud, because fraud is a crime. It's just a criminal lie and they're making like a big deal in the year 2000 and beyond that, we didn't know that cancer was caused by a virus. Well, you got patents in there saying they're using virus as a vector, and these are created viruses. They're like Rottweilers on a leash to interface with cancer.
And that's just it. I can't help but compare this now to a computer model, and it literally is. It's hard to believe. So we'll be back, folks. Stay tuned.
Scientists have been battling to understand what this unappealing object is all about. Some of them have what the object is all about.
Information in the form of energy streams in simultaneously through all of our sensory systems in the form of energy, our sensory system, and then it explodes into this enormous collage of what this present moment looks like, what it feels like, and what it sounds like.
Welcome back. My guest today, Patrick Jordan, a repeat guest. And we'll have him back whenever we can. Although it seems we have to be a little secretive about when we're going to do it, because those phone lines get messed with. But I keep reading these things, and they just keep shocking me. They're talking about self-destructing ribose switches, which I can't imagine. This one says switching genes on and off. Scientists have developed RNA switches which allow them to specifically turn on and off genes in viruses. Each gene serves as a recipe for building a protein molecule. So, again, if you don't remember, this is your first time hearing about prions. Prions attach themselves to a protein. They are a protein themselves, although they don't have a nucleus. They don't seem to be a living thing per se, but they attach themselves to other proteins, and they like to they like to cause encephalopathy. They like to spongiform encephalopathy, that it is, where your brain becomes a sponge because they attach, and then that attaches to another one and to another one, and you find holes, literally like Swiss cheese, in the brain. Now, it's not only in the brain, obviously. This is basically a systemic thing we're talking about, as I'm finding out more and more. I thought it was just a brain function, but this is much, much, much deeper. And now they're talking about, again, when a particular protein is needed by the cell, the corresponding gene made of DNA is turned on or transcribed into a messenger RNA, which then carries the protein recipe to the protein-making machinery of the cell. Well, if you have a prion intercepting that quote-unquote messenger, then your body's not going to be able to respond to a disease state. This is and they're talking about this like it's an Avon product. I mean, it's like, it's no big deal. How long do you think they've had this?
Oh, well, thank you for that perfect segue. I know for a fact, because anybody that wants to can go to my website, vaccineprod.com, go to the PDF section, and there are 2 memos by the World Health Organization written in 1972 that basically outlined how to make a vaccine into a weapon. If you, by many means, turn off the immune system of a host, and now, Clint, this is the beauty of our collaboration. You just gave me yet another way to do it, because there's many ways you can turn off the immune system. If you turn it off, you can load up the host with lethal virus in every cell of their bodies, and they will run around as if there is nothing wrong. But then, if you happen to, use a molecular switch, and, these are modern times, maybe use a light frequency to switch on the immune system, then at the very least, you get what's called the cytokine storm that people are familiar with from like the 1918 flu that wiped out, a huge portion of the population.
Yeah.
That cytokine storm can either cause severe organ damage to the point of like taking out your kidneys, which, by the way, kidney disease was the focus of those 1972 memos. In that year, Nixon enrolled people into programs that didn't exist for kidney transplant and dialysis. So we're talking conspiracy, we're talking crime, we're talking genocide, we're talking crime, global crimes against humanity. 1972, they knew how to switch off the immune system, load people up with a deadly disease, switch on the immune system. At the least, you got organ damage. At the worst, you're dead.
Well, here's an interesting factoid. Since 1982, more than 1 billion doses of hepatitis B vaccine have been administered to children worldwide.
Wow.
So we are talking about, that's one thing to say we're talking about causing disease, but then, this is getting into a control factor that I don't think we can really, we can really put into words. I mean, depopulation type thing.
Yeah, tell me why you went from the topic that we were on to that, because I can tie it all together. I can pull the shoelaces on here and cinch it up so tight we can climb the mountain. What inspired you to bring that up? Because that is like a seed for me, hepatitis B.
And I would point to the concept that hepatitis B vaccine program was the very thing that I have a cousin that actually has the original virus of, I guess we're calling it HIV, but AIDS. And he took part in the hepatitis B vaccine program that they offered to gay people in, San Francisco. I think it was New York. And that was, of course, when everything happened. And I'm convinced that vaccines are what, is causing AIDS, especially in Africa. So, I mean, when you, I think we mentioned this last time on the show, but not with you, but, the London Times in 1987 had two pretty big headlines. Smallpox vaccine triggered the AIDS virus.
Right.
And the AIDS epidemic triggered by smallpox vaccine, so, and it has to do with vaccinia.
Right.
So,
right.
Yeah.
Right. We've come full circle. That's the beautiful thing. I know we're coming up to like the top of the hour, but what people need to know when you hear hepatitis B, it is hepatitis B surface antigen. It is a VLP, a virus-like particle. It is, and hold on to your pantyhose, a self-assembling biological machine. We have just gone from the realm of what you thought was biology to the realm of transhumanism, to actually building circuits and things inside of human beings.
I'll tell you, if I wouldn't have seen video of that, I would probably question whether that's really possible. When you see the actual video of these crazy psychopaths growing human cells on computer chips and then communicating with them and causing, this horrific pseudo life to happen, it's, I could see it now.
And so what we can do is we can go from the world of viruses, so hepatitis B is a virus, to other vaccine components that have what's called endotoxins. That's basically bacteria poop. Many of those and the cell structures of bacteria are self-assembling molecules, and they just keep shooting this stuff in. You just said 1 billion children around the world have these nanomachines inside of them. Let's go all the way back to the 1960s and chronic wasting disease. They were saying chronic wasting disease can be picked up from the soil, inert objects like the soil. And why? Because they were being expelled in the urine and feces of the wild animals. And so this cycle of transmission becomes complete once you introduce the weapon. And see, I didn't call it a vaccine. I didn't call it some laboratory thing gone bad because they were trying to do something good for humanity. They created, with intent, weapons, and they are polluting the entire biosphere of the planet with them.
You know, again, as far as the dirt goes, there was a warning. I think they warn every year in the London Times. They tell people that when you're fertilizing your plants with basically, cow manure, that you need to wear a mask and gloves and make sure you don't inhale it, because you could get the bovine and the transmissible spongiform encephalopathy. I mean, it's right there, and it tells you that it's there. It's pretty crazy. So, anyway, we'll be back with Patrick Jordan, vaccinefraud.com. Stay tuned.
Don't give yourselves to brutes, men who despise you, enslave you, tell you what to do, what to think, and what to feel, who drill you, diet you, treat you like cattle. Don't give yourselves to these unnatural men, machine men, with machine minds and machine hearts. You are not machines, you are men. You, the people, have the power to make this life free and beautiful. Let us use that power to make this life a wonderful adventure. Let us all unite. Let us fight for a new world to do away with greed. A world where science and progress will lead to all men's happiness. Do not despair. The hate of men will pass, and dictators die. And the power they took from the people will return to the people. Let us all unite.
Welcome back, folks, to the Corporation Nation. I'm Clint Richardson, your host. With me today is Patrick Jordan from vaccinefraud.com. Patrick, did you say you said your third book is coming out now, or is it all finished, edited, and all that?
Oh, well, not completely done, but I figured, the rare times that you and I have to disseminate knowledge, giving people a preview of what's going to be in it. I'm on my 11th book. It's my third book on just food, and as you say, I like to call it doof because it's completely backwards.
Yeah.
You can't just get on a topic of food without going into exactly what we're talking about. Everything in life is interrelated. And so I try to focus on what gives us energy. But in doing so, we just characterize the world as if we were living in the Matrix. The scientists in Poland have our biological molecules listed as diodes, resistors, transistors, and capacitors.
Was that more of an explanation about how they work, or just like a simile to decide how to alter them? And
well, some of this stuff, Clint, I got to admit, people think I'm smart. Half of that paper was just so far above my head. When people write to me and go, "What did they say?" It's like, I don't know. But of the stuff that I could take in, they were making these correlations for the express purpose of what we're talking about, control. Because if you can codify something as this is this molecule, it operates in this way in the human body, then all of a sudden the world becomes manipulable.
Absolutely.
Well, I don't want anybody on the outside running me like a laser light show.
Well, good luck with that.
Yeah, thanks.
I think we're fastly approaching the time when we're going to see all this come to fruition. I remind folks to, go read about the zombie gun that was quoted by Putin to be done by 2020, I believe it was, and I'm sure they already have that. Zombie gun basically just is a frequency gun. That's it. Just to change the brainwaves of the opposing army, make them into what he referred to as zombies, just through frequency. We're in that type of warfare, fourth generation, fifth generation, whatever warfare at this point. And what we're doing here is basically looking at the backbone of that. We're seeing how they're writing the computer programs that are going to create false switches to turn whatever they want on and off in our bodies, the epigenome. It's very scary. You got anything else to say about interferon, or you want to move on to the this LDL thing?
Oh, yeah, I want to jump to that. Let me just add a couple little thoughts into people's minds. Dioxin, Agent Orange, and Roundup can all lead to chronic wasting disease. Dioxin has its own domestic history, but it is linked to Southeast Asia. Agent Orange. Roundup is apparently in the blood of every man, woman, and child on this planet. And so these things, you think the Vietnam War, that was over there. It only happened to them and maybe the vets. It's like, man, they're bringing this stuff home. It was part of what I call the long game, their plan of changing, to cook the frog slowly. I think everybody knows that term by now. These things were introduced into the environment with knowledge and malicious intent.
Well, chemicals used in pesticides increased your chance for viral infections during World War II. I mean, what do you think they were doing, folks, over there in Vietnam and spraying all this Agent Orange stuff? I mean, into the 1950s, massive amounts of pesticides such as DDT, heptachlor, dieldrin, TEPP, malathion. They're sprayed on at the crops and then eaten by humans and livestock. And unfortunately, that means that the milk is also contaminated. Unfortunately, even if you're, going for the raw milk, you can't really. Those pesticides, man. Any connection to the chemicals used in spraying pesticide formulations in polio epidemic are regularly denied. However, the chemicals used in spraying pesticides were found to increase viral infections in the hosts. Researcher Janice Gablix noted in the study called Studies of Biologically Active Agents in Cells and Tissue Cultures that, quote, as it is recognized that residues of some agricultural insecticides persist in the body and that cells are continuously exposed to their metabolites, we investigated the possibility that these chemicals may alter certain physiological activities of cells and subsequently influence the susceptibility of hosts to viral or virus infection. So, yeah, absolutely. And, I could go on with the polio, but if you actually look at the graph for polio incidents and pesticide production, you'll see that it's almost an exact match as far as the times when they were used and the time of polio. But then you also have both Sabin and Salk coming out and blaming each other for causing the polio. And, of course, that's in congressional record where they're telling you that, I don't know, some ridiculous percentage of polio is only happen in vaccinated people. So crazy.
Yeah, you're talking the 1950s. By the 1970s, the virus cancer program had put into print that exactly as you said, Clint, pesticides activate viruses. In this case, it was viruses, who knew, that cause cancer. These are custom-made viruses. That the virus cancer program was all about, how do we get that sword of Damocles, that threat of, behave or we'll turn on your cancer. That's what that book was about. And so we know for a fact pesticides turn on viruses. Now we can take that and turn it full circle to what you're talking about of the RNA switches. In what was that? Did you say 2010 or something?
Yeah, 2011.
We just discovered these RNA switches. You know, a hail-hearty BS to that. In 72, they knew that they were turning on viruses. Viruses cause cancer, so all they have to do is get around to, well, now how do we control the viruses? Because you need that Rottweiler on a leash. You don't want it getting out and infecting the people that made it. Well, here's the thing. Roundup, it ain't working so well. So the word on the street is that they're going to be putting in farm chemicals. And I live in what I call the grain ghetto. I am surrounded by, as far as the eye can see, nothing but industrial farming. They're going to be putting, hold on to your pantyhose, Agent Orange in their mixtures because the weeds just won't freaking die.
What? Agent
Orange is the next herbicide of choice.
Well, that would make sense. It's the same dang company. Right, I mean, the Agent Orange delivery system of Monsanto now creates the delivery system of healthy GMO foods. So, yeah, that would make sense.
See how I can't talk about food without talking about the entire Holocaust?
God. All right, folks, we'll be back. Stay.
The mission was successfully completed. Reality.
Is this real? Or is this just rhyme? The world is like a ride. You think it's real, it's a rhyme. We can change it anytime we want. It's only a choice between fear and love. The world is like a ride. You think it's real, it's a rhyme. We can change it anytime we want. It's only a choice between fear and love.
Speaking of fear and love, we're not trying to scare you here. This is very scary information, but we're not here to put the fear of whatever in you. We're here. I don't know about you, Patrick, but I'm here to wake you the hell up. To say, look at what they're doing. They're publishing it on a regular basis. You know, sometimes, Patrick, I feel like a useful idiot. Sometimes I feel like the only reason I'm on this station, or any station for that matter, the only reason people say, oh, you're going to get harmed or they're going to do something to you. And I'm like, you know what? I'm probably doing them a favor because I'm actually telling people what they're doing. I'm actually disclosing the information to people. And, of course, like all of InfoWars, there will never be an action against anything disclosed, the New World Order and all that stuff. What we're talking about is it's the backbone of transhumanist medicine here, and the combining of chemistry and biology in a way that's just frightening the heck out of me. You ever heard of neuroleptic-induced deficit syndrome?
I hope I don't have it. No, I haven't heard of it.
Patients with NIDS appear to be indifferent to environmental stimuli, retarded and apathetic. They complain of feeling drugged and drowsy. Weird. They suffer from lack of motivation, and they say that they feel like zombies.
Oh, my. That's a cover for them to put in, like, the DSM, a thing that they have actually created. And so then they can say, oh, well, you've got this disease, instead of, oh, we unleashed a bioweapon on you. These are the symptoms. You know, you should be, like, in a hospital right now, being treated by people that care.
Crazy stuff, man. All right, well, let's go to ADL here, or excuse me, LDL. Same thing. Same thing. So there was a lot of talk about putting statins in the drinking water, basically, kind of like fluoride, which are a class of drugs used to lower cholesterol by inhibiting a certain enzyme, and it basically, in other words, it inhibits your liver from producing the proper cholesterol that you actually need in your body. Now, a lot of not so many doctors, but a lot of people like chiropractors have actually come out and said, hey, yeah, we've been telling you for years, it's cholesterol's not the problem. Your brain is cholesterol, for God's sake. It's the drugs, it's the food or doof that we're eating when it combines in the tummy and gets, created into horrible things. So why would you want to put statins in the drinking water? Well, to lower LDL, which they call bad cholesterol. But as we said earlier, guess what? What do you think LDL happens to do in the body? It happens to protect the body against prion disease. Now we know why.
So I love themes, Clint, and you opened the show with the theme of interferon. So what you're talking about, and I think people can follow this. I mean, it's this simple. It's a roadmap, and that's what we're doing. We're being the chroniclers of the evil that's been done, and so they don't have to do documentaries. We're doing it for them, but we're unraveling what they have done so that we can protect ourselves, that we can use the countermeasures. So, it's not all doom and gloom. We have a purpose to this. You opened with interferon. You just said that statins, and I'm going to reword this, interfere with lipids. But the lipids interfere with their prions. So this is like the game out in the parking lot where people have a baseball bat, and they're trying to get their hands as high as they can on the bat, and whoever gets on the top wins.
Yeah.
This is the escalation that's going on, interfering with the interferer of the interferor. Let me tell you something about lipids. As you said, there is no such thing as bad cholesterol. By 1937, you're going to love this, man, the tetanus vaccine was licensed. It was mandatory for anybody that was in the military. And by 1937, anybody in the military was considered to have at least one dose of tetanus, if not their boosters as well. So I'm just bringing that up because that was what they asked you in the ER for people that might not have heard the first half of the show. Now, what's going on with tetanus? What's going on with vaccines? Well, vaccines, in my first book, ICD 999, the chronic serum sickness postulate. When you create serum sickness in a body with something like horse serum, which tetanus typically is made from the blood of horses.
You mean blood, right?
Blood. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It creates terrible damage within the vascular system. When that happens, that can happen either through serum sickness or a virus, a bacteria, something damages the inside of the vascular system. It has to be repaired. What repairs that? Cholesterol. It basically makes a plug on the hull of the ship so that you're not leaking, so that, you can repair the cells of the vessel. And then if the body is working properly, the cholesterol is then broken down, recycled, and you have like a healed surface. But what happens is that the cholesterol becomes oxidized. That's the bad part. It's not the cholesterol itself, it's that it becomes oxidized. It builds up a plaque or a plug, and then you're in a world of hurt. So how did it get oxidized? This is the beauty of our collaboration, Clint. I did not know until I read your work that superoxide dismutase, SOD, was weaponized to be the misfolding initiator. So it would normally...
Tell people what that is, actually.
Okay. superoxide dismutase is yet again another metalloenzyme that breaks down oxygen radicals. So it is your primary antioxidant. And so if you had cholesterol plugs, which are good, the SOD, if it was working, would keep it from being oxidized. But the oxidized cholesterol is the bad part of the plug, the patch on your vessel walls. And because, see, I didn't know these sequences back in the early 2000s when I wrote ICD-999, I knew there was a problem, but I didn't know the scope of it. They weaponized SOD in us as an initiator of prion disease, thus taking it out of commission because it's misfolded. It can't do its antioxidant work. That's why all these health nuts are saying you need antioxidants. Why? Because your body's natural defense was purposely taken out of commission.
Oh, well, I suppose that's why vegetarians have such problems with their diets, especially eating soybeans and stuff. We'll talk about that when we come back. Stay tuned.
Welcome again to this neighborhood. I'd like to show you something. You know what this is? Maybe if I press this button. There are so many things to learn about in this world, and so many people who can help us learn, and so many people who can help us learn. Did you ever grow anything in the garden of your mind? In the garden of your mind. You can grow ideas in the garden of your mind. In the garden of your mind.
All right, folks, welcome back.
It's good to be curious.
We're talking with Patrick Jordan today, vaccinefraud.com. Please, sir, continue with, boy, we've covered a lot of subjects tonight, actually.
Well, don't call me, sir. I'm an enlisted man. So let's keep this within the military. The thing that got me on the trail of vaccines when I was first writing ICD-999 is I fell across some information that in World War II, they were cutting these kids up on the battlefield to fix them from, war injuries. And 17-year-olds had the arteries of 80-year-olds. And that really struck me. It's like, well, how in the world could they get hardening of the arteries? It couldn't just be diet. That's the red herring, the food that they throw at you to keep your eyes off of, what is the actual causal agent? And that got me down the road to serum sickness. And so what we're looking at, again, and I want to re-emphasize this so people get it. They took out of commission our superoxide dismutase that would have protected us from cholesterol that got oxidized. That is our natural system. But cholesterol that is properly working interferes, and I love that word, with their prion agenda. And so, we went back to the 1960s, chronic wasting disease, 1956, interferon, 1937 with these mass tetanus vaccines causing serum sickness, all the way back to 1790 and Jenner using his vaccinia, that campaigns like George Washington, Napoleon Bonaparte, they mandated that their troops get the vaccinia vaccination. That set up that entire serine protease inhibition interference so that this prion agenda could go through uninterrupted for what? Over 200 years, for goodness sakes.
And this was really before they really knew what they had. They just knew it was...
And do you really need to know, Clint? Sorry to interrupt you, but do you really need to know if you know what the end results are?
Right.
Do you need gene sequencing? It makes things easier. And for us, let's get to the useful part. Because I'm not a fear mongerer. I don't like to sell fear because, ooh, it's scary. You know, it certainly doesn't help book sales. I'm going to tell you right now. You know, people get depressed. They think there's a million demons like in Lord of the Rings coming out of the cracks. You know, how do we fight that? Well, let's take a look at a little thing that I tripped over as I was preparing this last book that I'm writing. I was going through my notes, and it's like, what in the world? You know, I write this stuff down, but you just can't keep it in your head. Methylene blue, which is called methylthioaneonium chloride. Methylene blue. It's a stain we used in high school biology to put on slides, tissue slides. Methylene blue interferes with Alzheimer's plaque formation. And it might actually repair mitochondria. Now, disclaimer here, folks, I'm not a doctor. I'm not giving medical advice. I'm not even saying that this is going to work today, you know, in these modern times. I don't know if it's effective. I don't know that it's safe. Methylene blue can be toxic, but it's used as a targeting agent. This comes from the Merck Index. Okay, I've got an old 13th, a good old Illuminati edition. It's a targeting agent for melanoma. It's an antidote for carbon monoxide and cyanide poisoning. Okay? So it's one of those things, it works like a molecular switch. It can be good, it can be bad. But what I'm trying to say, my entire point, Clint, the only reason I'm on these shows is that they have molecular switches out there. They can be known. They've been at this for over 6,000 years, and we're uncovering their dirty laundry. We've got a chance to put them down.
Well, I'd sure like to think we have a chance in our small capacity that we put forward. It's a nice thought. And, of course, it's going to take a lot of people to get very, very upset at what we are saying.
Exactly.
Just to understand what we are saying. And, you know, unfortunately, it's, you know, there's my biggest complaint about trying to rally up troops, real people, is that the people with money aren't interested because they don't want to rock the boat that gives them money.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's pretty tough to, I mean, it's easy to appeal to someone who is, I don't know, disenfranchised, even like myself, who doesn't want to have any part of this system. But it's a lot more difficult to actually talk to people and say, look, especially as someone that's a credentialed medical expert, and say, look, your whole system is based on fraud, vaccine fraud, in fact. And, you know, it's a frustration of mine because you can see how the system, you know, you can see that kind of vestation, the kind of vesting that happens in almost all walks of society, from pensioners to, you know, anybody that's vested in something is probably not going to bite the hand that feeds them, even though the hand that feeds them is injecting them with the worst possible kind of thing.
My favorite quote comes from a movie, My Dinner with Andre. The inmates have built their own prison, and they're so proud of their accomplishment that they will fight to defend it if you try to tear it down.
Yeah.
So basically, Clint, I don't fight. I'm not here to win hearts and minds. I am here to talk to people that have the capacity to listen, to know and understand what we're talking about. And if it is only, and actually on my email list that is very large, I have only, listen to me, 16 people that actually dedicate all of their free time to do the hardest work imaginable, and that's bringing down the system. 16 people, and I value them more than anything in this universe. And if it only takes, you know, I'll add you onto the list, Clint. You know, I was speaking of previous list members. If it's only 17 people, that's good enough for me.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. It's, well, I mean, let's face it, we don't have the capacity to break through mainstream fences that are up to keep people like us, down. So I think anybody listening to this station must realize that at this point. This statin thing, it's really disturbing how they want to put statins in the water supply, like I said, like it's like a fluoride additive, and the excuse is to make people healthy by lowering their cholesterol, when actually that's the worst possible thing you could do.
Doesn't every invader say we come in peace?
Yeah, I suppose.
We're here to help, man.
Yeah, absolutely. What else you got, man? So a vegetarian, you look at most vegetarians don't know how to eat. A lot of vegetarians, they do it as a crisis of conscience. I even did that for a year. Way back when I first discovered how cattle were treated, I did my own little protest, didn't eat meat for a year. But I had a really great not vegan. It was a restaurant that just had the greatest food, and I was there pretty much every day. I had the money to do it. So, in that case, I could get pretty much everything. But for the most part, vegetarians are not able to supplement what the body needs to do exactly what we're talking about. So I assume that the reason vegetarians start looking fairly haggard after a while is because they're not getting any of these these things like the cholesterols and the things that you need.
Oh, nice. I didn't know where you were going with this, but I like your association there. So, cholesterol basically comes preformed only in an animal source. You have to make it yourself from plant sources. Right.
So the statins actually prevent the liver from doing that. Okay, folks, we'll be back. Stay tuned.
Quantitative easing, trade imbalances, recession, low GDP, nations close to collapsing, and subprime loans, foreclosed homes, and people's taxes spent to bail out too big to fail AAA banks again. Fear levels rising as the US crash seems imminent, having smashed the debt ceiling of 14 trillion despite protests and clashes in Athens streets. The IMF imposed structurally unjust programs in Greece, where in fact the term economy entered our language from the Greek oikonomia, meaning household management. Well, how are we managing? Theories about it in practice. Does anyone actually know what the hell's even happening?
I was just looking at the chat room, and everybody has their own things that have worked in the past, or worked they've heard or doctor recommended or other. Everything from garlic to oils to hemp to you name it. But are we even talking about something that, if we're not talking about something natural, can we really expect to cure or to make ourselves better with something natural? If we're talking about a biomechanoid type of system here, we're not really talking about a traditional type of disease. We're talking about a purposeful infection with something that can't be killed necessarily with, let's say, garlic or something like that. So, talking about a robot here, basically, a bio something. I don't know what to call them. But this seems to be beyond the traditional allopathic medicine type of thing.
Well, that's the fear that they want to sell you, Clint. And what we have outlined. If people were listening, if they were listening, what they're doing is they are interfering with natural processes that interfere with the prions. So you're saying LDL cholesterol, it's not bad, it's natural to the body. It really messes up their day. Oxygen radicals, by the way, if you use ozone in a processing plant for, animal products that might be infected with prions, ozone destroys it, man. It completely destroys it. How simple is that? If you had superoxide dismutase in your body that destroys oxygen radicals, than things that naturally occur. You're making oxygen radicals and superoxides in your body all the time. That's why they had to take out our natural systems and replace it with, oh, you've got to take like fish oil. Well, fish oil actually increases serum sickness. Oh, you got to take plant oils. Ray Peat and Leo Lee say that plant oils are actually toxins. Okay? So they're always playing this interference game with the things that would, and it's the man behind the curtain. It's the Wizard of Oz. It's just a tiny little thing running a big machine, man. If you take out the little man, then the whole system goes down because they're interfering with us dealing with the world. That's, I'm not selling hope. Go to my website and I'll show you I ain't selling hope. I'm just saying that there are processes in the body, if left uninterfered with, can cope with the things that they have thrown at us. But it's a war of attrition. They will always escalate and throw more things at us. So it's not, okay, what is the new therapy? There will always be a new therapy. You got to get rid of the system.
That's a good point. Very, very, very good point. What were you going to say about vegetarianism?
Well, here's the thing. The selling feature for my first book on food, Operator's Manual for the Human Body, is something I'm never going to say on air because that's a selling feature. The first chapter will tell you everything you need to know about how food was changed permanently in 1900. So even if you were to use what they're calling superfoods, they were changed so fundamentally at the molecular level that's why I call it doof. It's not even food, man. So we're talking about myths. We've got to get beyond the myth of, well, okay, food is a therapy. Yeah, it will help. It will take the edge off of things, but it's been changed just like we are being changed from the inside. So it's the vegetarians, in my personal view, human beings are nothing but fermentation vats on stilts. We should be able to poke anything we want down our gob holes and make perfect bodies, but we can't. Why? Because we were changed before we were even born. The food was fundamentally changed in 1900 AD. You put those two together, that's why we're in a world of hurt, man, because it's called full-spectrum warfare. They've got all angles covered. So you have to get rid of the prime movers. You can't play catch-up because we're already behind the eight ball.
Well, sure, and their technology, like you've alluded to, their technology is obviously way more advanced than what they let on. The only reason we can get a clue, get a bone, thrown a bone every once in a while is because it's like they have to list certain things in order to patent things, and that's about the only way you can find out about this stuff is...
Brilliant on your part, yeah. I just admire the work that you're doing.
So let's take a phone call. I wasn't getting to this hour, but we'll take... well, actually, I don't have the name. I heard there was a phone call in there. Welcome, caller.
Hey, it's Fred.
Fred, how you doing?
All right. I'm among my favorite brothers here tonight. Stellar subject matter. Antioxidants are free radical quenchers, i.e. electron donors. In the body, I comprehend accurately Guyton's medical physiology. Our bodies produce not only SOB, but catalase and glutathione. And previously, I should have been dead 4 times. And in each case, I don't know what else to call a Holy Spirit miracle. I happen to have something on the counter that I had no idea was going to save my life on 4 different occasions. And I can tell you this, on 2 occasions, with 2 cardiac failure events 11 months apart, it was an ancient Asian secret, medicinal therapeutic mushrooms. And there's one and only only one company. Off air, I'll tell you, Clint, if you want to know. There's one and only one company that produces medicinal therapeutic mushroom capsules the proper traditional way. Everything else is garbage. Then there's barley grass.
A mushroom would be treated like an invader or a fungus, and the body would actually create an immune response by creating more, white blood cells? Is that right?
Well, no. In my case, with respect to the cardiac failure events, which is how I discovered the therapeutic benefit of these mushrooms. And I'll give you a clue. Hot water processing. They call it hot or warm water. There's only one company that does it that way. Anyway, the ventricular fibrillation, I call it shake and bake, the heart stops pumping and was violently shaking. It was the most bizarre experience. Okay, playing football, I was knocked out several times, so I'll start with that was nothing compared to this. Because all of a sudden it's like a switch was flipped and no energy. Anyway, by chewing on these capsules, because if you have a cardiac failure event, you never swallow anything because you can choke. So I remembered that. I just chewed the things without any knowledge of what was going to happen. But it was there. I grabbed it and threw a few in my mouth, started chewing. Probably within 30 seconds of chewing the capsules, my heart started pumping instead of shaking violently. In the other cases, with respect to immune function, it just happened to be barley grass, organic barley grass that's highly concentrated in catalase and SOD and possibly even glutathione saved the day. And by the way, since you're in Utah, there's a company called Cal, K-A-L. They make a nutritional yeast. Cal nutritional yeast that's almost dirt cheap relative to other products, and it's loaded with glutathione and precursors of glutathione. I don't go a day without that. So,
very nice.
Oh, by the way, the liver produces approximately, if I'm correct, 8 different lipoproteins, and they're all physiologically beneficial. LDL also has the function of neutralizing chemical toxins that enter the body. How do you like that? So they can, if our bodies are producing adequate levels, then we have a fighting chance against all this environmental crap. He's right.
Yeah, that's what it takes. You got to stop the body from acting like it should. Patrick, thanks for the call, sir. Patrick, your website one more time. Tell people the name of your new book as well.
Vaccinefraud.com. And the name of the new book, I've been working on it so long, I forgot what it is.
Okay.
It'll be coming out soon.
Doof. All right, man. Take care. Join me tomorrow. Gonna have a little controversial show with Matthew, who wrote the God part of the mind.